Way he's in front of me.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Marc Asano from Hawaiian Electric. So today I wanted to focus on our wildfire mitigation plans. Kono kind of touched on it, but maybe focus more on some of the hardening efforts that we plan to do in the community. First, at the beginning of this year in January, we did file an updated wildfire safety strategy in January with the Public Utilities Commission. So right now that document is under review, and the commission later this year will decide to approve it or make modifications to it. But our number one objective in that plan was, of course, to reduce the risk of wildfire and ignition from our electric utility infrastructure. So as sort of the foundational part of that plan is this idea of collective approach. So there's a lot of folks and groups that need to work together to reduce the risk, and that's why we work closely with all of our partners like MEMA and the fire department. So when we talk about wildfire risk, there's ignitions, there's land management, fire suppression, as well as fuels. So all of those parts of the puzzle need to kind of work together to ensure that we really do reduce risk so we don't have any more catastrophic wildfires. Let's see. As part of that strategy, there's four main areas or pillars that we focused on. So one of them is hardening, which I'll talk about in more detail today. So that has to do with upgrading our infrastructure. Another part is situational awareness. So you may have heard us talk about weather stations and cameras that we've put up to improve situational awareness. So we did a lot of work on that last year, and we're continuing to put up more cameras and weather stations over the next few years. Operational practices. So Kono talked about our PSPS program. That's one of the primary elements. It's really last line of defense. So if the conditions get very hazardous, then we would preemptively shut off the power in order to ensure that ignitions can't occur from our electrical infrastructure. And then finally is the stakeholder and community partnerships. So we've been doing a lot of community events and outreach to customers and critical infrastructure owners to make sure everybody's prepared for wildfires and some of the things like PSPS programs, as well as talking about the new plans we have to upgrade the infrastructure. So as I said, I wanted to talk more in detail tonight about grid hardening and what that means, especially in the Lahaina area. So there's four main elements to that. One is targeted undergrounding. So we are, evaluating areas statewide in our territory, but including on Maui, where it makes sense to underground for a number of reasons. Ideally we could underground everywhere, but we are trying to balance some of the cost implications of doing undergrounding. Another tool we have is to do what we call covered conductor. So right now you'll see a lot of our overhead lines, they're bare wires, but we can replace that with conductors that are covered, and that also helps reduce the risk of ignitions or sparks coming from our infrastructure. And then also transmission hardening. That's where some of the major transmission lines, so for West Maui, you'll see two lines kind of running from Ma'alaya. They start at Ma'alaya Power Plant and they run along the mountain into Lahaina. There's actually three lines running up to Lahaina, and then two more that go out towards Napili. So looking at those lines specifically to try to harden those with stronger poles. And then specifically looking at ingress and egress routes. So we've been working with folks like Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, and the county agencies to help identify some of this ingress and egress routes where we can do even more to harden those areas in order to make sure that they can withstand higher winds. So on undergrounding, initially we're going to start with 2 miles in Lahaina. So we're evaluating sort of all the different areas in Lahaina where we have infrastructure, and then we're going to kind of work with the community on that and look for 2 miles where we can underground. Longer term, we plan to do more, but we are going to be doing more comprehensive analysis to figure out what the true cost would be to underground more areas. There's a lot of factors that can influence the cost, so we want to do more analysis on that before we come out with more undergrounding plans. What I talked about was with covered conductor. Over the next 3 years or so, we plan to do about, I think, 36 miles of covered conductor across the island. So that includes areas in upcountry as well as in Lahaina. So those projects will be happening over the next few years. And so when we do covered conductor, that doesn't involve putting in stronger poles, as well as the covered conductor I talked about, where it does reduce the risk of sparks occurring. The next is transmission hardening. So typically you'll see the transmission lines, they're on taller poles than the ones that run through the neighborhood. So as I mentioned, you'll see them, they run along through Oluwalu and Laniopoko coming into Lahaina, and then they run through Lahaina town. This picture on the left or on the right, is some of the initial transmission we put back up after the August events. So we did replace those with steel poles, which are much stronger or can be much stronger than previously. So the idea here is that upgrading the poles for any of the work we do is meant to withstand higher winds. So like a 1 in 300 year type of wind. That's roughly about like a Category 1, Category 2 type of hurricane. So we do think they will be stronger and better able to withstand high wind events. And then ingress, egress, mitigation. We are looking at different pole material types as well, such as steel or composite type of poles. They have kind of different characteristics too. So those are the kind of the things we're looking at. We are, identifying some of the major roadways and arteries in Lahaina to be able to do this work on and to be able to make sure that we can harden all of the infrastructure. Some of the other work that has been ongoing and will continue to do over the next couple of years is just replacing other equipment, so deteriorated poles. We have other things called like fuses and lightning arresters. So we're replacing that equipment with ones that are less likely to produce sparks. And then also other reconductoring of other lines that may be more brittle to make sure we can put stronger wire back up. And then I think that's my last slide, so after we can answer questions.